I want an open marriage. This is final.
Please, don't do this to me, please.
The champagne glass shattered against marble as Isabella Kingsley's world crumbled in real time. Her husband's voice echoed through their pristine penthouse. I want an open marriage. 24 hours later, she sat across from Kang Min-ho, Seoul's most feared mafia boss, his dark eyes burning into hers with an intensity that made her forget how to breathe. You're mine now, he said, voice like silk over steel, and I don't share. Something impossible awakened inside her. Something wild and terrifying and utterly inevitable. Welcome to K-Fairy Tale Stories, besties. Please like, share, and subscribe. Isabella stared at her husband across the dinner table, the words still ringing in her ears. 3 years of marriage, and Daniel had just calmly suggested they see other people while staying legally married. For appearances, he'd said, for the company's image. As if their relationship was just another business transaction. You can't be serious, she whispered, her hands trembling around the wine glass. Daniel shrugged, cutting into his steak with surgical precision. It's practical, Bella. We both know the spark is gone. This way, we can explore other options while maintaining our social standing. The spark had never existed. She'd married him because her father insisted. Because their family's businesses aligned perfectly. Because she'd been 22 and naive enough to believe duty and love were the same thing. She'd spent 3 years trying to be the perfect wife to a man who looked at her like a particularly boring piece of furniture. I want a divorce, she said quietly. His fork clattered against the plate. Absolutely not. The merger with the Park Group depends on our marriage appearing stable. You'll destroy millions in contracts. And I guess you should have thought of that before asking to sleep with other women. She stood, walking away from the table, from the penthouse, from the life that had been slowly suffocating her for 3 years. She grabbed her coat and purse, ignoring Daniel's shouted protests, and stepped into the Seoul night without a plan, without a destination, with nothing except the desperate need to breathe. The rain started as she walked, soaking through her designer dress, ruining the heels that cost more than most people's monthly rent. She didn't care. For the first time in years, she felt something other than numb. She ended up in a bar in Gangnam, the kind of place where the lighting was low and the music was loud enough to drown out thoughts. She ordered whiskey, then another, drinking until the edges of her pain softened into something manageable. Rough night? The bartender asked in English, noticing her accent. Rough life, she corrected, downing her third drink. And that's when she felt it, the weight of someone's attention, heavy and focused and impossible to ignore. She turned slowly, meeting the gaze of a man sitting in a private booth near the back. He was devastating, sharp jawline, dark eyes that seemed to see through everything, black hair styled with casual perfection. He wore a suit that probably cost more than her car, and he was looking at her like she was the only person in the room. Their eyes held for 3 seconds that felt like hours. Then he stood, moving toward her with predatory grace, and Isabella's heart started racing for reasons that had nothing to do with alcohol. You're American, he said when he reached her, his English flawless but accented. And you're crying. I'm not crying, she lied, though tears were definitely mixing with the rain on her face. You're also married. His eyes dropped to her wedding ring. And drinking alone. Either you're celebrating something or running from someone. What makes you think I'm running? His smile was sharp, knowing, because I recognized the look. I've seen it in mirrors. He gestured to the empty stool beside her. May I? She should say no. Should finish her drink and go back to the penthouse. Back to Daniel and the life she'd agreed to. Instead, she found herself nodding. He sat, signaling the bartender for 2 more whiskeys. Up close, he was even more striking. There was something dangerous about him. Something that made her pulse quicken, and her instincts scream warning she had no intention of heeding. I'm Min-ho, he said. Kang Min-ho. The name meant nothing to her. She'd only been in Seoul for 6 months, barely spoke Korean, knew nothing about the city's social hierarchies or power structures. She had no idea she was sitting next to a man who controlled half of Seoul's underground empire, whose name made politicians nervous and business owners careful. Isabella, she offered. Kingsley. Well, Isabella Park now, I guess, though not for much longer if I have anything to say about it. Trouble in paradise? Paradise implies something worth fighting for. She took a long drink. My husband just asked for an open marriage. Apparently I'm too boring to keep his attention, but too useful to divorce. Minho's expression darkened. Then your husband is an idiot. You don't know me. Maybe I am boring. You walked out into the rain without a coat. You're drinking whiskey like water. You're wearing a dress that costs a fortune and don't care that it's ruined. His eyes held hers. Boring women don't do that. Boring women go home and cry into their pillows. You came here to feel something. He was right, and the accuracy of it made her chest tight. What about you? She asked. What brings Seoul's most eligible bachelor to a random bar? He laughed, low and rough. I'm not eligible. I'm dangerous. There's a difference. Dangerous how? In every way that matters. He leaned closer, and she caught his scent. Expensive cologne and something darker. Something that made her think of smoke and secrets. But especially dangerous for women who are trying to escape bad marriages. Why is that? Because I don't believe in sharing. When I want something, I take it and I keep it. And the words should have scared her. Instead, they sent heat spiraling through her body, made her hyper-aware of how close he was sitting, how his knee brushed against hers. That sounds possessive, she managed. It is. His hand moved to her face, thumb brushing away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. But sometimes possessive is what you need. Sometimes you need someone who sees you and decides you're worth fighting for. Isabella couldn't breathe. This stranger, this dangerous man whose name she barely knew, was looking at her like she mattered, like she was precious, like she was something worth claiming. I should go, she whispered, though she made no move to leave. You should stay. His hand slid to her neck, thumb tracing her pulse point. Stay and tell me why you're really crying. Tell me what he did to make you run. So she did. She told him everything. 3 years of being invisible, of trying to be perfect, of slowly disappearing into a role she never wanted. She told him about the open marriage request, about the casual cruelty of being told she wasn't enough, while simultaneously being too important to let go. Minho listened without interrupting, his hand never leaving her neck, his eyes never leaving her face. He's right about one thing, Minho said when she finished. You are too important to let go, but not because of business, because you're extraordinary, and he's too stupid to see it. You don't know that. You've known me for 20 minutes. I know enough. He stood, pulling her with him. Come with me. Where? Somewhere you can breathe without drowning. She should refuse. Should go back to the penthouse. Should try to salvage her marriage. Should do literally anything except follow a stranger into the night. But Minho's hand was warm around hers. And for the first time in 3 years, she felt like someone actually saw her. So she went. His car was a black Mercedes, sleek and expensive and probably bulletproof. The driver said nothing as Minho helped her into the back seat, his hand lingering on her waist just a second too long. They drove through Seoul in silence, the city lights streaking past like fallen stars. Minho's hand found hers in the darkness, his fingers lacing through hers with casual possession that made her heart race. They stopped at a building in Gangnam, all glass and steel, and the kind of wealth that didn't need to announce itself. Minho led her through a private entrance, into an elevator that required a keycard, up to a penthouse that made her own look modest. This is where you live? She asked, staring at the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the entire city. One of the places. He shrugged off his jacket, rolling up his sleeves to reveal muscled forearms. I have others. This one has the best view. Isabella walked to the windows, pressing her palms against the glass. Below, Seoul pulsed with life, millions of people living their own dramas, their own heartbreaks. Why did you bring me here? She asked quietly. Because you needed somewhere safe, somewhere you could fall apart without judgment. He appeared beside her, his reflection overlapping with hers in the glass. And because I wanted to see you without pretense. Without the armor you wear for the world. You don't know anything about my armor. I know you're wearing it right now. I know it's been suffocating you for years. I know that underneath it you're drowning. His hand came to rest on her lower back. Let me see who you are when you're not performing. She turned to face him, and the intensity in his eyes stole her breath. Why do you care? Because from the moment I saw you, something inside me recognized something inside you. His free hand cupped her face. I don't know what it is yet, but I know I'm not letting you go until I figure it out. That's insane. You can't just claim a married woman you met an hour ago. Watch me. Then he was kissing her, and Isabella's entire world narrowed to the heat of his mouth, the strength of his arms around her, the way he kissed her like she was air. And he was drowning. She should push him away. Should remember her vows, her marriage, everything she was supposed to be. Instead, she pulled him closer, kissing him back with 3 years of repressed longing, of feeling invisible, of being starved for someone to actually want her. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Minho rested his forehead against hers. "Stay tonight," he said. "No expectations. No pressure, just stay." She should say no. Should go back to her husband, back to her life. But she was so tired of should. Tired of doing what was expected. Tired of being invisible. "Okay," she whispered. He led her to a guest room, gave her clothes to sleep in, brought her water and aspirin for the hangover she'd definitely have tomorrow. Then he left her alone, closing the door with a soft click that sounded like possibility. Isabella lay in the unfamiliar bed, wearing Minho's shirt, staring at the ceiling. She'd just kissed a stranger. She'd just abandoned her husband. She'd just blown up her entire life. And for the first time in 3 years, she felt alive. The next morning, she woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the smell of coffee. She found Minho in the kitchen, already dressed in another perfect suit, looking like he hadn't spent the night thinking about a married woman he barely knew. "Good morning," he said, pouring her coffee without asking how she took it. He already knew somehow. "How do you feel?" "Like I made a terrible mistake. Good mistakes or bad mistakes?" "I don't know yet." She accepted the coffee, grateful for something to do with her hands. "I should go. My husband is probably worried." "Is he?" Minho's eyes held hers. "Or is he relieved you're gone so he can do whatever he wanted the open marriage for?" The truth of it hit her like a physical blow. Daniel had barely texted, had made no effort to find her. He'd probably assumed she went to a hotel to sulk and would come home when she was ready to be reasonable. "I need to go back," she said quietly. "I need to figure out what I'm doing. And if I asked you to stay, if I told you I could protect you from whatever fallout comes from leaving him, I'd ask what you want in return. Nobody protects people for free." Minho smiled, sharp and knowing. "Smart woman, I want you. Completely. Exclusively. Permanently. I want you to leave your husband and let me show you what it's like to be chosen, not just tolerated." "You're insane. You don't even know me." "I know enough. I know you're stronger than you think. I know you've been slowly dying in a marriage that treats you like property. I know that last night when you kissed me, you came alive." He moved closer. "And I know that if you go back to him, you'll spend the rest of your life wondering what would have happened if you'd been brave enough to choose yourself." Isabella's hands shook around the coffee cup. This is crazy. People don't just leave their marriages for strangers they met in bars. They do when the stranger sees them better in one night than their spouse did in 3 years. He was right, and that terrified her more than anything. "I need time," she said. "I need to think. Take all the time you need. But know that I'm not giving up. I've already decided you're mine. The only question is how long it takes you to accept it." The driver took her back to the penthouse. Daniel was still asleep, hadn't even noticed she'd been gone. She stood in their bedroom doorway, watching him snore, feeling absolutely nothing. That's when she knew. Her marriage had been over long before last night. Minho hadn't destroyed anything. He'd just shown her what she'd been too afraid to see. She packed a bag, left her wedding ring on the dresser, and walked out. By noon, she'd filed for divorce. By evening, she'd moved into a hotel. And by midnight, she was standing outside Minho's building, her heart pounding, her entire future uncertain. He answered his door like he'd been waiting for her. "I left him," she said. "I don't know if this is smart. I don't know if we'll work. I don't even know who you really are. But I left him." Minho pulled her inside, his arms coming around her with fierce possession. "You won't regret this, I promise you." "How can you promise that? You barely know me. I know enough. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving I was right about you." Then he was kissing her again. And Isabella stopped thinking about smart decisions, about consequences, about anything except the way he made her feel. Seen, wanted, chosen. The next few weeks were a blur of legal meetings and her soon-to-be ex-husband's fury. Daniel fought the divorce with everything he had, not because he loved her, but because he hated losing. His lawyers were vicious, painting her as unstable, as someone who'd abandoned her marriage on a whim. Minho's lawyers were better. They had documentation of Daniel's infidelity, of the open marriage request, of 3 years of emotional neglect. They destroyed his case so thoroughly that his own lawyers recommended he settle. Through it all, Minho was there, not hovering, not controlling, just present. He'd show up at her hotel with food when he knew she'd forgotten to eat. He'd send cars when she needed to get somewhere. He'd text her good morning and good night like clockwork. "You don't have to take care of me," she told him one evening when he appeared with takeout and her favorite wine. "I want to." He set the food on her hotel room table. "Get used to it. I'm not your responsibility. No, you're my choice. There's a difference. She was learning there was. A choice meant freedom. A choice meant being valued for who she was, not what she provided. One night, 3 weeks into the divorce proceedings, Daniel showed up at her hotel. Drunk, angry, demanding she come home. "You're embarrassing me," he slurred, trying to push past her into the room. "Everyone's talking about how you left me for some criminal." "Criminal?" Isabella's blood went cold. "You didn't know?" Daniel laughed bitterly. "Your new boyfriend runs half the organized crime in Seoul. He's a mafia boss, Bella. You traded me for a goddamn gangster." He was lying, had to be lying. Except the pieces suddenly fit together. The wealth, the power, the way people moved when Minho entered a room. The casual mention of being dangerous. "Get out," she said quietly. "You're making a mistake. He'll destroy you. He's been nothing but good to me, which is more than I can say for you. Now get out before I call security." After Daniel left, Isabella sat on the bed, her mind racing. Minho hadn't lied, but he hadn't exactly been forthcoming either. She needed to know the truth. She called him. He answered on the first ring. "My hotel now. We need to talk." He arrived within 20 minutes, concern etched across his features. "What happened? Are you okay? Are you a crime boss?" Minho went very still. "Yes." The simple admission was somehow worse than if he'd tried to deny it. "You should have told me. Would it have changed anything? That first night, if I'd told you I was a mafia boss, would you have come with me?" "No." "Exactly." He moved closer. "I didn't lie to you, Isabella. I told you I was dangerous. I told you I took what I wanted. You just didn't ask for specifics. That's not fair. Life isn't fair. But I've been nothing but honest about how I feel about you, about wanting you, about protecting you." His hand cupped her face. "Whatever I am out there in here with you, I'm just a man who's completely obsessed with an extraordinary woman. You kill people. Sometimes. When they deserve it. When they threaten what's mine." His eyes held hers, "And you're mine now. Which means anyone who threatens you becomes my problem to solve." She should be terrified. Should run as far and fast as possible. Instead, she found herself leaning into his touch. "This is insane," she whispered. "Probably." He kissed her forehead, achingly gentle. "But I think we established that from the beginning. So the question is, are you brave enough to be insane with me?" Isabella thought about the last 3 years, about being invisible, being tolerated, being convenient, about waking up next to a man who barely noticed she existed. Then she thought about Minho, the way he looked at her like she was precious, the way he showed up when she needed him, the way he made her feel alive. "Yes," she said. "God help me, yes." He kissed her then, deep and claiming, backing her toward the bed. When they fell onto it together, Isabella knew she was crossing a line she could never uncross, knew she was choosing a dangerous man over a safe life, knew this would change everything. She chose him anyway. Later, tangled in sheets, Minho's fingers traced patterns on her skin. "Tell me what you're thinking. That I should be more scared than I am. That this should feel wrong, but it doesn't. Because it's not wrong. You and me. This is the first right thing that's happened to either of us in a long time." He pulled her closer. "I'm not going to pretend to be something I'm not. My world is violent and complicated, but I will never lie to you, and I will never let anyone hurt you. And if they're more powerful than you, especially then." His voice turned hard. "There is no power greater than what I feel for you, and anyone who tests that will learn exactly why people fear me." The possessiveness should scare her. Instead, it made her feel safe in a way she never had before. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later. Daniel tried every tactic. Threats, bribes, attempts at reconciliation that rang hollow and desperate. None of it worked. Minho's lawyers were too good, and Isabella was too done. On the day the papers were signed, Minho took her to dinner at the most expensive restaurant in Seoul. They ate in a private room, and halfway through dessert, he pulled out a small velvet box. "It's too soon," Isabella said, her heart racing. "It's not a proposal, not yet." He opened the box to reveal a necklace, a delicate chain with a pendant shaped like a lotus flower. "It's a promise that I see you, that I choose you, that whatever comes next, we face it together." She let him fasten it around her neck, the weight of it settling against her skin like an anchor. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For seeing me when I'd forgotten how to see myself." 3 months into their relationship, everything changed. Isabella was leaving a meeting with her lawyer when a van pulled up beside her. Men in masks grabbed her, dragging her inside before she could scream. She fought, scratching and kicking, but there were too many of them. Something pricked her arm, and darkness swallowed her whole. She woke in a warehouse, tied to a chair, her head pounding. A man stood in front of her, Korean, middle-aged, wearing an expensive suit that didn't hide the cruelty in his eyes. "Ms. Kingsley," he said in English. "Or should I say Minho's woman? You're more trouble than you're worth. Who are you?" "Someone who wants to send your boyfriend a message. He's been expanding into territory that belongs to us. We're going to teach him what happens when he gets greedy." Terror clawed at her throat, but she forced herself to stay calm. "Minho will find me. We're counting on it. When he comes for you, we'll be ready." The man smiled. "Either he backs off our territory or we kill you. Simple business." Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time became meaningless in the darkness. Isabella's wrists bled from fighting against the ropes. Her throat was raw from screaming. But no one came. Then she heard it. Gunfire, shouting. The warehouse erupted into chaos. The door burst open and Minho appeared, flanked by armed men, his suit spattered with blood, his eyes wild and dangerous and absolutely lethal. When his gaze found hers, something in him settled and sharpened simultaneously. "You're alive," he breathed, crossing the space in seconds. His hands were shaking as he cut through her ropes, checking her for injuries with desperate gentleness. "God, you're alive." "I'm okay," she managed, though she was trembling violently. "Who did this?" His voice was cold. "Who took you?" The man from earlier was dragged forward by Minho's men, bleeding but conscious. Minho looked at him with an expression that made Isabella's blood run cold. "Please," the man begged. "It was business. Just business. You made it personal when you touched what's mine." Minho's gun appeared in his hand. "Any last words?" "Minho, don't," Isabella said quickly. "Don't kill him because of me." He looked at her, something dangerous and desperate in his eyes. "He hurt you, he took you. He threatened to kill you, and you want mercy? I want you. Not covered in more blood, not carrying more death. I just want you." For a long moment, he didn't move. Then he handed the gun to one of his men. "Take him. Let the others decide his punishment." His arms came around Isabella, lifting her easily. "I'm getting you out of here." The ride back to his penthouse was silent except for Isabella's occasional trembling. Minho held her the entire time, his arms tight enough to hurt, his face buried in her hair. "I thought I lost you," he said finally. "When they called and said they had you, I thought I'd lost you before I'd even really had you." "I'm here, I'm okay." "No, you're not. And it's my fault. My enemies did this. My world put you in danger." He pulled back to look at her, and there was agony in his eyes. "Maybe Daniel was right. Maybe you should have stayed away from me." "Don't," she caught his face. "Don't you dare use this as an excuse to push me away. I chose you knowing what you are. I'm choosing you now. Even after this, even knowing it could happen again. Especially after this. Because you came for me. You didn't negotiate or hesitate. You came and you saved me." She kissed him fiercely. "That's who you are to me. Not the mafia boss, not the dangerous man. The one who saves me." He kissed her back desperately. And when they stumbled into his penthouse, when he carried her to his bedroom, when they finally gave in to everything they'd been holding back, it felt like claiming and surrender and salvation all at once. Afterward, tangled in his sheets, Minho held her like she might disappear. "Marry me," he said into the darkness. "What?" "Marry me. Not because of business or image or anything except that I can't imagine breathing without you. Marry me because you're the only good thing that's ever happened to me. And I want to spend the rest of my life proving I deserve you." Isabella's throat tightened. "That's the most romantic and terrifying proposal I've ever heard. Is that a yes?" She thought about Daniel, about 3 years of being invisible. Then she thought about Minho, about how he saw her, chose her, fought for her. "Yes," she whispered. "You insane, dangerous, perfect man. Yes." They married 3 months later in a small ceremony attended only by people Minho trusted absolutely. Isabella wore white, not because she was trying to pretend at innocence, but because it felt like a new beginning. Minho's hands shook when he slid the ring on her finger. "I promise to protect you," he said during his vows. "To choose you every day, to be worthy of the trust you've given me, and to love you with everything I am. For as long as I'm breathing." Isabella's voice was steady when she said, "I promise to see you. Not the role you play or the reputation you carry, but who you really are. I promise to stand beside you through whatever comes, and I promise to love you exactly as you are. Dangerous edges and all." When they kissed, sealing vows that felt more binding than any legal contract. Isabella knew she'd made the right choice. This man, this dangerous, possessive, utterly devoted man, was her future. 6 months later, she woke up nauseous. By noon, she'd confirmed what she'd suspected. That evening, she told Minho over dinner in their penthouse. "I'm pregnant." He went very still. "You're sure?" 3 tests sure. For a moment, he said nothing. Then he was on his knees beside her chair, his hands covering her still flat stomach, his eyes wet. "We're having a baby," he whispered, like he couldn't quite believe it. "Are you happy?" she asked, suddenly nervous. Happy doesn't begin to cover it. He kissed her, soft and reverent. "You've given me everything, a reason to be better, a future worth fighting for, and now a family." His hand stayed on her stomach. "I'm going to protect both of you with everything I have. I know you will." The pregnancy transformed Minho from protective to absolutely militant. He tripled security, banned her from leaving the penthouse without armed guards, and insisted on attending every doctor's appointment. "You're being ridiculous," she told him when he tried to carry her up a single flight of stairs. "You're carrying my child. I'll be as ridiculous as I want." But beneath the overprotectiveness, she saw the fear. Saw him wake from nightmares about losing her, about something happening to the baby, about his world destroying the family he'd built. "We're okay," she'd whisper on those nights, pulling him close. "We're safe, you keep us safe. I'll die before I let anything hurt either of you." She believed him. Their daughter was born on a spring morning, tiny and perfect, and screaming with impressive lung power. Minho cried when the nurse placed her in his arms. This dangerous man reduced to tears by 7 pounds of possibility. "She's perfect," he breathed, staring at her in wonder. "She's absolutely perfect." "What should we name her?" Isabella asked. "Hope." His voice was rough with emotion. "Her name is Hope, because she's proof that even people like me can have something good." Isabella reached for them both, pulling her family close. "We're all proof of that. Proof that choosing each other was right, that love is worth the risk." Minho kissed her, then their daughter, his expression so full of love it hurt to witness. "Thank you," he said, "for seeing me, for choosing me, for giving me this. Thank you for saving me from a life where I'd forgotten how to be seen." 1 year later, Isabella stood in Minho's penthouse, Hope balanced on her hip, watching the city sprawl below. She thought about the woman she'd been. Invisible, diminished, drowning in a marriage that treated her like furniture. Then she thought about who she'd become. Minho's wife, Hope's mother, a woman who'd chosen danger over safety and found salvation in the choice. Minho's arms came around her from behind, wrapping around both her and their daughter. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "About how my husband asking for an open marriage was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because it led me here, to you, to us. Your ex-husband," he corrected, always possessive about the distinction. "And it led us to each other. You saved me just as much as I saved you. So we're even?" "Never." He kissed her neck. "I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you. And I still won't be even." Isabella turned in his arms, Hope giggling between them. "Then I guess we'll just have to keep choosing each other. Every day, forever." "Forever," Minho agreed. "You, me, and our daughter, against whatever comes." And as the soul sunset painted their family in gold, Isabella knew that sometimes the worst thing that could happen was actually the beginning of everything good. Sometimes asking for an open marriage led to finding real love. Sometimes dangerous men were the safest choice. And sometimes, just sometimes, being brave enough to choose yourself meant finding the person who'd been choosing you all along. 3 years into their marriage, Isabella had learned to navigate Minho's world with grace. She understood the coded conversations, the careful politics, the way power shifted like tides. She'd also learned that being married to Seoul's most feared mafia boss meant living with constant threats. The first serious one came on a Tuesday morning. Isabella was at Hope's preschool, chatting with other mothers, when her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. The photo showed Hope playing in the school courtyard, taken from outside the fence. The caption read, "Beautiful daughter. Would be a shame if something happened to her." Isabella's blood turned to ice. Her hands shook as she immediately called Minho. "Someone's threatening Hope," she said the moment he answered, her voice deadly calm despite her racing heart. "I'm at the school, they sent a photo." "Don't move. I'm sending security now, 5 minutes." His voice was absolutely lethal. "Forward me that message, everything." The security team arrived in 4 minutes, surrounding the school like a military operation. Minho appeared 6 minutes later, his face carved from stone, fury radiating from every line of his body. "Show me," he demanded. Isabella handed him her phone. She watched his expression darken as he studied the photo, his jaw clenching with barely controlled rage. "Get Hope, we're leaving. Now." He was already on his phone, barking orders in rapid Korean. "And someone find out who sent this before I burn this entire city down looking for them." They pulled Hope from school, the little girl confused by the sudden departure and the serious expressions on her parents' faces. Back at the penthouse, Minho had tripled security again, posted guards on every floor, and essentially turned their home into a fortress. "I'm scared," Isabella admitted that night after Hope was asleep. "I've never been this scared." Minho pulled her into his arms, his embrace fierce and protective. "I know I'm scared too, but I promise you, whoever did this will regret being born. I will find them, and I will make sure they never threaten our family again. What if you can't find them? What if—" "I will." His voice was absolute certainty. "There is nothing in this world I won't do to protect you and Hope. Nothing. Do you understand me?" She nodded against his chest, drawing strength from his conviction. By the next morning, Minho's people had identified the sender, a rival organization trying to leverage Hope's safety to force Minho out of a lucrative territory. They'd underestimated how he'd respond. Minho didn't negotiate, he declared war. Over the next week, Isabella watched her husband transform into something terrifying. He dismantled the rival organization piece by piece, systematically destroying their operations, their finances, their power base. It was ruthless and efficient and absolutely brutal. The message was clear: touch his family, and he would erase you from existence. When it was over, when the threat was eliminated and the organization scattered, Minho came home covered in consequences. Not blood. He was too careful for that. But the weight of what he'd done sat heavy on his shoulders. "It's done," he said quietly, finding Isabella in Hope's room, watching their daughter sleep. "They won't bother us again. No one will. I made sure of it. How many people died?" Isabella asked, needing to know. "Does it matter? They threatened our child. They made themselves my enemy. I eliminated that enemy." His hand found her waist. "I won't apologize for protecting our family. I'm not asking you to." She turned to face him. "I just need to know that the man I married is still in there, under all the violence and power and fear." Minho's expression softened. He cupped her face with gentle hands that had done terrible things. "I'm still me. Still the man who saw you in that bar and decided you were worth everything. Still the man who loves you more than his next breath. The violence is what I do. You're who I am." Isabella kissed him, tasting truth and desperation. "Then come to bed. Let me remind you who you are when you're just mine." That night, as Minho held her close, Isabella realized something fundamental. She'd chosen a dangerous man, and danger came with consequences. But those consequences also came with absolute devotion, unwavering protection, and a love so fierce it would burn the world down to keep her safe. She could live with that. 2 years later, Isabella found out she was pregnant again. Minho's reaction was exactly what she expected. Joy mixed with renewed paranoia about their safety. He wanted to lock her in the penthouse until the baby was born. "That's not happening," she told him firmly. "I have a life, Hope has school. We're not hiding. Someone could always do something. We can't live in fear." She took his hand, placing it on her stomach. "But we can live carefully. We can be smart. We can let you protect us without imprisoning us." He struggled with it. She could see the war in his eyes. But eventually he nodded. "Okay, but security stays, and you don't go anywhere without telling me first." Deal. Their son was born in winter, healthy and loud and utterly adored by his big sister. They named him James, after Isabella's father who'd passed before she moved to Seoul. Minho cried again, holding his son with the same wonder he'd shown with Hope. "Two miracles," he whispered, looking between his children and wife. "How did I get so lucky?" "You chose me in a bar when you could have walked away," Isabella reminded him. "You saved me. You fought for me. You earned this. Every day I wake up thinking I don't deserve you, deserve this." "Good. Keep thinking that. It'll keep you working to be worthy of us." She smiled, pulling him close. "And you are worthy. Every day you prove it." Life settled into a new rhythm. Hope started regular school. James grew from infant to toddler with alarming speed. Minho gradually loosened his death grip on security, though he never completely relaxed. Isabella built a life that balanced being a mafia boss's wife with being her own person. She started a charity, helping immigrant women navigate Seoul's complicated systems. Minho supported it completely, using his resources to protect her clients when they needed it. She became known in certain circles as someone who could help when official channels failed. "You're building your own empire," Minho observed one evening, watching her field calls from 3 different women seeking assistance. "I learned from the best," she replied with a smile. He crossed the room, pulling her into his arms despite her phone still ringing. "I love watching you thrive. Watching you use my world for good instead of just violence. Someone has to balance out all your dark with some light. You've been doing that since the night I met you." He kissed her softly. "You're my light, Isabella. You always have been." Their 10th anniversary arrived with surprising speed. Minho planned an elaborate celebration, renting out an entire restaurant, inviting the few people they trusted completely. Hope was 9 now, James 7. Both beautiful and beloved, and utterly unaware of the dangerous world their father navigated daily. 10 years, Isabella marveled, standing beside Minho in their bedroom before the party. "Can you believe it? No. Sometimes I still expect to wake up and find out you were a dream, that the woman in the bar was just wishful thinking." "I'm real, we're real." She adjusted his tie, a widely gesture that felt sacred after a decade of practice. "And I'd choose you again. Every time, in every lifetime. Even knowing what you know now, even after everything. Especially after everything. Because every challenge, every threat, every moment of fear has been balanced by how completely you love me, how fiercely you protect our family, how you've never once made me feel invisible or tolerated." She kissed him. "You see me, Minho. You've seen me from the beginning. That's worth any danger." The party was beautiful. Friends toasted their love. Hope and James gave speeches that made everyone cry. Minho presented Isabella with a necklace. Diamonds shaped like a lotus flower, matching the pendant he'd given her a decade ago. "From stranger to wife to mother to my entire world," he said as he fastened it around her neck. "You're everything I never knew I needed. Everything I don't deserve but refuse to give up. Good, 'cause I'm not going anywhere." Isabella pulled him close, aware of their children watching, their friends smiling, their life perfect in its imperfect way. "You're stuck with me forever. Promise?" "Promise." But forever got complicated 6 months later when Daniel reappeared. Isabella's ex-husband had disappeared after the divorce, moved back to America, remarried quickly. She'd barely thought about him in years, until he showed up at her charity office, looking older and desperate. "I need help," he said without preamble. "I know I have no right to ask, but I'm in trouble, and you're the only person I know who might have the connections to fix it." Isabella stared at him, memories flooding back. 3 years of being invisible. The open marriage request. The man who'd valued her so little he'd traded her for convenience. "Why would I help you?" she asked coldly. "Because despite everything, you're a good person. Better than I ever deserved." He looked genuinely desperate. "I borrowed money from the wrong people. They're threatening my wife, my kids. I heard you're married to Kang Minho now. Everyone knows he can handle these situations. You want me to ask my husband to save you? The man I left you for. The man you called a criminal. I was wrong about a lot of things. Wrong about you. Wrong about what mattered. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for help." Isabella should have thrown him out. Should have told him to deal with his own mistakes. But she thought about his current wife. About his children who'd done nothing wrong except have a father who made bad choices. "I'll talk to Minho, no promises." Daniel's relief was palpable. "Thank you, really. Thank you." That evening, Isabella told Minho everything. He listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. "You want me to help him," he said finally. "Not a question. I want you to help his family. They don't deserve to suffer for his mistakes. And if I refuse, if I say he deserves whatever's coming, then I'd understand. But I'd also be disappointed, because I know you're better than that." She took his hand. "You're not the kind of man who punishes innocent people." "That's not who you are." Minho was quiet for a long moment. Then he sighed. "Fine. I'll look into it. But not for him, for you. Because you asked. Because even after everything he did to you, you still have compassion. That's why you love me. One of many reasons." He pulled her close. "But I swear, if he ever comes near you again after this, if he ever asks for another favor, I'm done being merciful. Deal." Minho's investigation revealed that Daniel had borrowed from a loan shark with connections to organized crime. The debt wasn't enormous by Minho's standards, but it was enough to destroy Daniel's life. Minho paid it off, then had a very pointed conversation with the loan shark about targeting civilians. "It's handled," he told Isabella a week later. "Your ex-husband's debt is cleared. His family is safe. He's been strongly advised to make better financial decisions. Thank you. Don't thank me. I didn't do it to be nice. I did it because you asked, and I can't refuse you anything. He tilted her chin up. But that's the last time we help him, agreed? Agreed. Daniel sent a thank you note that Isabella never responded to. That chapter of her life was closed. She had no interest in reopening it. Life continued. Hope became a teenager, beautiful and smart, and terrifyingly perceptive. James developed his father's intensity and his mother's compassion. Minho gradually stepped back from the day-to-day operations of his organization, delegating more, choosing family time over business. "You're getting soft," one of his associates teased during a meeting. "No, I'm getting smart." Minho's voice was firm. "I spent 30 years building an empire. Now I want to enjoy what I built it for. My wife, my children, the life we have together." Isabella loved watching him transform. He was still dangerous when he needed to be, still commanded respect and fear in equal measure. But with her, with their children, he was just Minho, the man who'd seen her in a bar and decided she was worth everything. On their 15th anniversary, Minho surprised her with a trip to Paris. Just the two of them, leaving the kids with trusted guards and Minho's most loyal people. "When did you plan this?" Isabella asked, staring at the plane tickets. 6 months ago. I wanted to take you somewhere romantic, somewhere we could just be us. Paris was magical. They walked along the Seine, ate at tiny restaurants, made love in a hotel room overlooking the Eiffel Tower. For 1 week, they weren't a mafia boss and his wife. They were just Minho and Isabella, two people who'd found each other against impossible odds. "I love you," Minho said on their last night, holding her on the balcony as Paris glittered below. "I've loved you since that night in the bar. I'll love you until I stop breathing, and probably after that too. I love you too, my dangerous, devoted, impossible man." She turned in his arms. "Thank you for choosing me, for seeing me, for building this life with me. Thank you for being brave enough to leave what was killing you, for being brave enough to choose me despite every reason you shouldn't have." He kissed her deeply. "You're my everything, Isabella. My entire world." They returned to Seoul renewed, reconnected, more in love than ever. Their children had grown in that week, it seemed. Hope was preparing for university. James was excelling in school. Their family was thriving. But challenges never truly ended in Minho's world. A new rival organization emerged, younger and more aggressive than previous ones. They didn't respect the old rules, didn't honor territory agreements. They wanted war. Minho tried to negotiate, tried to find peaceful solutions. But eventually he had no choice but to respond with force. The war lasted 3 months. 3 months of heightened security, of careful movements, of Isabella lying awake at night, wondering if Minho would come home. He always did, sometimes bruised, sometimes exhausted, but always alive. "This has to stop," she told him after a particularly close call left him with broken ribs. "Our children are terrified. I'm terrified. There has to be another way. I'm working on it. But these people don't negotiate. They only understand violence. Then be more violent, end it. Whatever it takes, end it so we can have our life back." Minho looked at her, surprised. "You're telling me to escalate?" "I'm telling you to finish it. You've been holding back, trying to minimize casualties, trying to be better than them. But maybe being better means protecting our family at any cost. Maybe it means doing whatever's necessary to give our children a future where they don't live in fear." Something shifted in his expression. "You're sure?" "I'm sure I want my husband home safe. I'm sure I want our children to sleep without nightmares. I'm sure I trust you to do what needs to be done." She took his face in her hands. "End this war, Minho, however you have to." He did. 1 week later, the rival organization's leadership was dead, their operations destroyed, their people scattered. It was brutal and efficient and absolutely final. Minho came home that night exhausted but whole. Isabella met him at the door, pulling him into her arms. "It's over," he said simply. "All of it over. And you're okay? I'm home with you. That makes me better than okay." They stood in the doorway of their penthouse, holding each other, while their children slept safely in their rooms. The war was over. The threat was eliminated. Life could continue. 2 years later, Hope graduated high school with honors. She'd been accepted to Seoul National University, planning to study international relations. James was thriving in middle school, already showing signs of his father's strategic mind and his mother's compassion. "We raised good humans," Isabella observed during Hope's graduation party. "We did." Minho watched their children with visible pride. "Despite everything, despite my world, despite all the reasons they shouldn't have turned out well, they're extraordinary. They get it from their father. They get it from both of us. He pulled her close. You gave them compassion and strength. I gave them resilience and loyalty. Together, we gave them everything they needed to face the world. Even your world, especially my world. Though I hope they choose differently. Hope wants politics, James wants medicine. Neither of them want my empire. He smiled. And I couldn't be happier about it. You're really stepping back? I'm retiring gradually. Over the next 5 years, I'll transition everything to my lieutenants. And then I'll just be Isabella's husband, Hope and James's father. A man who gets to enjoy the family he almost didn't have. Isabella felt tears prick her eyes. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything except marrying you. He kissed her softly. I've spent 20 years building power. Now I want to spend the rest of my life enjoying what that power protected. You, them, us. On their 20th anniversary, Minho threw a massive party. Everyone who mattered attended. Business associates, friends, family. The people who'd watched them build a life against impossible odds. During his toast, Minho stood with Isabella beside him, his hand tight around hers. 20 years ago, my wife walked into a bar in Gangnam looking like she was drowning. I saw her and decided she was worth saving. What I didn't know then was that she'd end up saving me instead. He looked at Isabella, love evident in every line of his face. She's given me everything, purpose, family, a reason to be better than I was. And even after 2 decades, I wake up every morning grateful that she was brave enough to choose me. Isabella stood, taking the microphone. 20 years ago, my husband told me I deserved to be chosen, not just tolerated. He saw me when I'd forgotten how to see myself. And every day since, he's proven that choosing him was the best decision I ever made. She smiled through tears. He's dangerous and devoted and absolutely impossible. And he's mine, forever. The room erupted in applause. Hope and James stood, raising their glasses to their parents. Friends cheered. And in that moment, Isabella saw her entire life. The pain that led her here, the choice that changed everything, the love that made it all worthwhile. Later, in the quiet of their bedroom, Minho held her close. Do you ever regret it? He asked. Leaving your safe life for my dangerous one? Never. Not once, not even during the scary parts. She kissed him. You gave me a life worth living. You gave me children worth protecting. You gave me love worth fighting for. How could I regret that? I don't deserve you. Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway. She smiled. Besides, I'm the one who got lucky. I got the man who sees me, who chooses me every day, who loves me like I'm his entire world. You are my entire world. They made love slowly, tenderly, 20 years of knowing each other evident in every touch. Afterward, tangled together, Isabella thought about the woman she'd been. Invisible, diminished, drowning. Then she thought about who she'd become. Minho's wife, Hope and James's mother, a woman who'd chosen danger over safety, and found that danger could be where you finally felt safe. Thank you, she whispered into the darkness. For what? For that night in the bar. For seeing me, for choosing me, for building this life with me. She felt him smile against her hair. For proving that sometimes the worst thing that happens is actually the beginning of everything good. 24 hours after your husband asked for an open marriage, you were mine, Minho said quietly. Best 24 hours of my life, because they led to 20 years of the best life I could have imagined. And 20 more after that? Isabella asked. And 20 more after that. And 20 after that, as many 20s as we get. His arms tightened around her. You and me, Isabella, forever. Forever, she agreed. Outside their window, Seoul glowed with possibility. Inside their bedroom, 2 people who'd found each other against impossible odds, held tight to the love they'd built. A mafia boss who'd learned that true power was protecting the people you loved. A woman who'd learned that being seen was worth any risk. Their children slept safely in their rooms. Their future stretched bright before them. And somewhere in the universe, fate smiled at 2 people who'd turned a moment of crisis into a lifetime of devotion. Because sometimes asking for an open marriage led to finding real love. Sometimes dangerous men were the safest choice. Sometimes the worst night of your life was actually the beginning of everything good. And sometimes, just sometimes, being brave enough to choose yourself meant finding the person who'd been choosing you all along. 24 hours. That's all it had taken to change everything. 24 hours from devastation to destiny, from invisible to irreplaceable, from drowning to saved. Isabella Kingsley, now Isabella Kang, had learned that timing was everything. That one night could change your entire life. That choosing yourself could lead to being chosen by someone who saw you completely. And as she fell asleep in her husband's arms, surrounded by the life they'd built together, she knew with absolute certainty that she'd make the same choice again, every time, in every universe, without hesitation, because Minho was right. They were forever. And forever started the moment he saw her in that bar and decided she was worth everything. The end.